this guy's crazy. He plants way too many onions, and then about every month or so, he just likes to go out in his garden and move them around. What's up, Lazy Dog fam? Hope all y'all are having a wonderful day. It is Friday, December 15th here in South Georgia, and on today's video we're going to give a little update on some of our in-ground onions, check on those, see how they're doing, and then we're going to try to figure out why these onions don't really seem to like our raised beds, and we're going to try to fix it. So let's start out with a little update on our short day onions. So we've got brassicas on that side of the plot, and then 5 different varieties of short day onions on this side of the plot. We started these from seed in the greenhouse back in September, and then transplanted them out here early to mid-November. And besides 1 or 2 here and there that I think the dogs stomped on, most of them are looking nice and green and healthy. So the color on them is good, but they're not growing quite as fast as I think they should be. I know we've got good fertility here just by the way those brassicas are growing. I think it probably has a lot to do with the cool weather we've been having lately. I haven't looked at any historical data, but feels like this has been a cooler than normal December, so that might have them growing a little slower. And the other thing that probably hasn't helped is the rain. Now, onions are thirsty plants. They can drink up the water, and we haven't been getting a lot of frequent rains, but when we do get some rain, it seems like it rains for 2 days at the time, which really gets the soil kind of packed down and waterlogged. Now, we talked about this a little bit on our last brassica update video, but when your soil gets packed down and waterlogged like that, it can do a world of good to come in there and do a light cultivation. Kind of aerate that soil, help those plants breathe a little bit better. So while I've got it on my mind, I'm gonna go grab the wheel hoe and knock this out real quick. There we go. That took less than 5 minutes, but that will do a heap of good for these onions. So if your soil is beat down like that, a light cultivation, just 1 or 2 inches, will do wonders for the plants. And what you'll notice, they'll pop almost like you gave them a round of synthetic fertilizer. Me and the boys are about to dip off to the mountains in the morning, but in a few days when I get back, I guarantee you these onions will have taken off. Now let's transition over here to the raised bed garden, where we've got something going on with these Louisiana evergreen shallots. Something is causing these to look a little rough, and I can't figure out what it is. Now, several weeks ago when we got our first frost and we noticed some damage on these onions, I hypothesized that it was because of the soil consistency in these raised beds here, because they drain better than our in-ground garden does. We weren't able to keep the soil moist, and that's why we got some damage. And while that's certainly something that can happen, that's a valid guess. We want moist soils when we're getting freezing temps to help insulate the plants. I don't think that's what's going on here. If I pull up a clump there, you can see that soil is nice and moist there. If it wasn't moist, it wouldn't be sticking to those roots. We'd be able to shake it off a lot easier. So then I thought, well, maybe it's a combination of cold and wind, because these raised beds are sitting higher off the ground. These onion plants getting a little more wind than if they were planted in the in-ground garden, and maybe they're just getting burnt by some of this cold wind. Or maybe we've just got too many of them planted in this little 4x6 bed. This thing is absolutely covered with onions. Maybe they're just running out of room, too crowded, and need to be spread out more. Or maybe we've got some kind of fungal issue going on here. Now, I've never had any fungal issues with onions in the past, perennial or short day onions, and I'm certainly no plant pathologist, but maybe that's what it is. So I don't know what's causing those onions to look less than stellar, and if you've got any ideas, please put them in the comments below. Now, building upon our resolution plan for those Louisiana evergreen shallots, I want to show you a nice little comparison with these potato onions here. So, a while back, this bed was completely full of potato onions, but we harvested half that bed, and we moved them over there to the in-ground garden. So these potato onions that were left in this raised bed don't look as bad as those Louisiana evergreen shallots right there, but we're starting to see some of the same issues. They definitely don't look as good as I think they should look. But if we take a quick gander at the potato onions we moved, yes, they're smaller because we trimmed them up when we moved them, but these look a lot better. Now, I know these perennial onions can be grown in a tiny little pot or raised bed, basically any kind of container. People have been doing it for longer than I've been alive. But for some reason, it would appear that these onions like our in-ground garden plots more than they like these raised beds. So I'm going to give them what they want. So my plan is to take every one of them right there, pull them up, trim them up, split them up, and move them right over there to that no-till plot. So let's get down to business here. We're gonna pull all these up, try to leave as much of this dirt in this bed. Gonna trim up those roots a little bit. Gonna trim up these tops some. I'm not gonna save these scraggly looking tops. I got enough onion tops to feed all South Georgia. I'm not gonna save these. Probably will just drop those on the ground there. May rake them up later, give them to the worms, and then we'll split them up, throw them in our bucket here, and we can replant them over there in the in-ground plot. All right, so we got them all up there. Some of the larger clumps I was able to divide out each individual piece. Some of the smaller clumps I kind of left them as a double or triple, and we'll just plant them that way. Now I realize some of y'all out there may be thinking, this guy's crazy. He plants way too many onions, and then about every month or so he just likes to go out in his garden and move them around. But really, I'm just trying to learn more about these perennial onions, what they really like, and kind of test their limits a little bit. And so I think the problem here is actually the opposite of what I initially thought. I think we had too much water and too much foliage. You can see how much those onions are blanched there. The white part shouldn't be that long, but because there was so much foliage in here, each plant was kind of shading out the next plant, creating a really moist environment. Some of those onions even felt a little squishy. So we definitely needed to spread them out a little bit. The other thing I've learned so far dealing with all these perennial onions is that at least down here, you can split them up, divide them, replant them anytime throughout the cool season. Won't hurt them one bit. I don't know how far north you can get away with that, but down here, doesn't seem to matter. We can do it anytime we want throughout the winter. And so we're going to put as many of those as we can in this double row that I've already got prepared. I've got my drip tape buried. I put down a Healthy Help and a Coop Grow, and it's ready to plant. And this should work out pretty good because we've already got some alliums over here, 4 rows of garlic, and then I wanted to save this part of the plot for 3 rows of in-ground taters to plant in February. Taters and onions usually mature around the same time, so that way we can harvest this whole plot within a few weeks. And speaking of taters, yesterday in fact I placed my order with Wood Prairie Farm. I got 6 different tater varieties on the way. We're going to plant 3 different varieties in the in-ground garden right here beside me, and then the other 3 in some of those raised beds. So if I can remember them all, the varieties I got for the in-ground garden would be Baltic Rose, which is my #1 favorite, Huckleberry Gold, another favorite, and then Sharp O'Meara, which did really well for us last year. And then for the raised beds, I'm doing Purple Viking, Charlotte, and Rose Gold. So if you want to try some of those varieties, you can get them at woodprairie.com. Be sure to use the code LazyDogFarm to get 5% off. And keep this in mind when you're ordering your seed potatoes. I told them to go ahead and ship mine, although I'm not going to plant until the middle of February. And that's because this year I'm planning on doing that same green sprouting, aka chitting process that we did last year. That takes about 4, 5, 6 weeks. It worked really well for us last year, so I'm going to do it again this year. That's why I need my seed potatoes way ahead of when I'm actually going to be putting them in the ground. But anyways, let's get back to relocating these Louisiana evergreen shallots. We're going to do these just like we did those potato onions that we put in the other in-ground plot. Going to put them about 6 inches apart here, plant them on a double row. I'm not going to plant them real deep, so move over about 6 inches, stick another one in the ground, and then we'll do the same thing over here. And this should give them much more room to breathe, get some light on these plants, keep them from being in that damp, waterlogged environment that they were in that raised bed. Well, I got that row planted, but I had a lot more onions than I had row, so I think we may have to try to squeeze in one more row right here between that hardneck garlic and this row we just planted. I think we've got room there to do it, just probably not going to do it today, because these things will be just fine sitting in this shallow bucket for several weeks. Might actually even do them a little good to dry out some. And back over here at the raised bed garden, now we can take this bed and over the next few weeks get it cleaned up, add some more soil to it, and we can use this as one of our tater beds. Probably not going to fit them all in here, but we can fit some of them in here and then find one more bed to plant some taters. So I hope you enjoyed the video today. As always, you can find a lot of the products we use around here on our website at lazydogfarm.com. And if you want to see more of the perennial onion varieties we have growing in one of those raised beds back there, check out this video. We'll show you when we planted all those and all these different varieties we got from all over the world. So check that out, and we'll see you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.